Deceived by the CCP's propaganda claiming that China has contained its epidemic while other countries remain unable to do so, many Chinese nationals rushed back to the mainland from overseas in hopes of avoiding the global pandemic. What they didn't expect was that China's quarantine policies varied from city to city. Some soon found themselves in a worse situation than when they were overseas. Hsieh was among those who recently returned to China. Due to the risk faced for speaking to independent media, Li had her sister recount the details of her experience to the Epoch Times.
Her flight arrived in Xi'an on Sunday, March 22nd, around 9 p.m. We live in Yulin. Before she came back from Thailand, she made more than 200 calls to the relevant Chinese airports, local authorities, and filed her applications. She was told that local staff would transport her to a designated quarantine accommodation. She was told there would be no accommodation fees and that the local government would subsidize her when she arrived. They said the only charge was for meals at 60 yuan, $8.47 per day. When their flight arrived, a bus was there to pick them up. However, they soon realized that they were not being taken to the designated accommodation, but to a hotel where they would have to pay. Some people complained about the hotel location as they had to make a connecting flight the next day. Others complained that they had no money for the hotel. But none of these arguments were acceptable, and no one was allowed to leave the bus. It was already around 4 a.m. when they arrived at the hotel. After such a long trip, my sister was tired. She paid the money in order to get some rest. It was an upfront payment for 14 days of quarantine at 5,000 yuan, $705.77. The hotel's usual rates were around 100 yuan, $14.11 a night, as it was a very old hotel. But they were charged at 280 yuan, $39.52 a night, in addition to meal plans at 80 yuan, $11.29 a day, totaling 5,040 yuan for 14 days. They rounded down to 5,000 yuan, $705.77 for everyone. There were two sisters who had to pay 10,000 yuan, $1,411.55 because they were not allowed to share a room. No one was given a receipt. It was a run-down hotel. There was only fast food available, which cost 10 yuan, $1.41 on the menu. They had already paid 80 yuan, $11.29 for each meal. There was no swab test of any sort. She assumed there would be some coordination between authorities from her hometown, Yulin, and those in Xi'an. But the authorities in Yulin, who assumed my sister made it to the city for quarantine, only recently realized that she had been isolated in Xi'an instead when they wanted to check on her health. That means Xi'an City made their quarantine decisions based on their own policy without notifying people's home cities. My sister had no choice. She had to agree to being quarantined in that Xi'an hotel. She was supposed to come back here for quarantine. They have not done anything to ensure effective communication and coordination between local governments. It was the same for everyone else. They were all forced to remain in isolation in that hotel at very high rates. She could put up with the food and the hotel, but when local police came to see if she had left without reporting it to the authorities in Yulin, she found it unacceptable. She was sent to the hotel for quarantine by force. It didn't only happen to her. Many other returnees, including overseas students and a person from Australia, were unaware of this. Yulin authorities had no idea that these people were all quarantined by Xi'an city authorities. Xi'an's authorities didn't mention anything about the quarantined. They just went ahead and did it. They have no policy and no authorization, but they do it. It's unbearable.
Miss Li is an overseas student who just returned to China from Thailand.
I have heard that you all had to pay the quarantine fee on your own, and the charge was quite high. Can you explain the situation?
My flight was at 8 p.m. on March 20th. I arrived at 10:50 p.m. There were all sorts of formalities, physical exams, records, and so on. After going through customs, we were ordered to go directly into quarantine. Initially, my family helped file a record at the local authorities, which was meant to allow me to stay home for quarantine. We have a vacant house nearby. My family wanted me to stay there. Later, we learned that the hotel quarantine was mandatory, but the local authorities assured us they could make a transfer and that there was need to file another report. We consulted with local authorities, but they picked us up from the airport to this quarantine hotel. The entire flight was transported there. There were many people, including people waiting for the connecting flights. Everyone was quarantined. This hotel was not as convenient as the ones in the city. But we were forced to accept the charges. The full charges had to be paid in advance for the entire 14 days. Otherwise, we wouldn't receive a key card. 4 a.m., it was really late. We were waiting in the airport until 3:30 a.m. in the morning. We complained to the authorities about the situation. In the beginning, we were told to wait for a response, but so far we have not heard back from anyone. Now we cannot even reach any of them. There's nothing we can do, and that's why I'm asking for help online. There's another issue about the charge. There's no receipt. They took the money, but no one said anything about how long I have to stay.